Good morning. Welcome to this SCORE webinar. Everyone is interested in internet security these days and keeping their data and documents and their lives secure. And we're so grateful for the Better Business Bureau and CommWorld and here at SCORE for their partnership in being able to present this webinar today with Lilia Rudan. Also, we have with us Devery Sturgis from CommWorld, who's going to be available for questions and interaction at the end. And we are just reminding you that this webinar is being recorded. That is to your advantage because you can go back and reference it. The presentation will be emailed to you. And we're asking you to type your questions in the chat box as we go along so that we can come back to them at the end of this session. If you will now participate in our opening poll, we would be most appreciative. We have several questions that would help us to understand where we're going. If we could launch those questions now, it would be great. Have you or someone you know had your identity stolen? Yes or no? This is such a frightening thing for everyone. We'd like to know what your experience, not just you, but maybe someone you know. The second question is, if you have children, do you have their identity information in a secure location? And the third question is, have you or someone you know had their bank account hacked? Take a moment and answer those questions and we'll share the results with you. Okay, we're ready to share the results. Everyone here either has had or knows someone who's had their identity stolen. 100% of you have taken measures to secure your children's security, and half of you either personally or you know someone who has had their bank account hacked. So as I turn this over to Lilia Rudan from the Better Business Bureau, Lilia, you have a wide awake audience today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here this morning. A lot of information that we will go over today. A lot of data, just like we did in our previous webinar on cybersecurity. And we'll talk about identity theft, what it is, how it happens, types of identity thefts, individual identity theft. So there's going to be so much information. I hope you guys will take something away at the end of this webinar that will prevent you from becoming a victim of identity theft. Next. Just a quick shout out to our sponsor, CommWorld. Thank you so much for making this webinar possible for Bbb to be here and present this to our audience.
You're so welcome. Happy to be here.
Of course. And then, of course, SCORE, thank you for partnering up with us and hosting this webinar. Again, it wouldn't be possible without you guys as well. Now, don't know how many of you are familiar with Better Business Bureau, what we do in the community or not. So quick rundown or quick overview. We are a nonprofit. Our core service to the community, to consumers, is to provide factual background information on businesses in our service areas. So that's where Bbb Business Profiles come in. And what we want you to do here at Bbb is to always track a company and a business with Bbb first before you do business with them. So you can always go to bbb.org, type in a company name, type in the location, and we will provide you, given that we have that information, we will provide you with a business profile that will tell you, is this a good company or not? What kind of rating do they have? Are they accredited with Bbb? Do they have any complaints on file that they have not resolved? Do they have the proper licensing? So essentially, we are giving you all the information that you need beforehand to make sure you're making a smart decision with your money. Same On that same profile, you can read or submit a customer review. You can file a complaint. You can even request a quote from a company or several companies to eliminate the legwork for yourself, trying to reach out to multiple companies for a bid. And of course, we have Scam Tracker. This tool is designed to help you research or report a scam that is happening to you. So when you have some time, just type in Bbb Scam Tracker in your search engine and just check it out. Give it a few minutes. You're going to explore what it is and what it can do for you. So that is all I have on Bbb services. And let's just take a quick look at what we'll be talking about today. We'll talk about ID theft impact, as I mentioned before, how ID theft happens, what's the damage, past the financial aspect of it is, business ID theft, and essentially how to try and prevent falling victim to identity theft. So let's just start with reviewing what is identity theft, right? So identity theft it's a crime, number one, but it's a crime of obtaining personal or financial information of another person or entity, or like a business, to use that identity for financial gain or criminal activity. So it's not always just to get some, money from the victim. Sometimes identity thieves use people's identities to commit crime. So let's review types of identity theft that can happen and just kind of go over what they are. So obviously financial identity theft, that's when someone takes over your accounts, they train them, they open credit cards, lines of credit, just finance whatever they want in your name, and then obviously don't pay it back. And that hangs on your name. Social security identity theft, when someone uses your social security number to apply for a job, and a lot of times don't pay their taxes, but then IRS gets a wind of this and reaches out to you for those back pay taxes. Medical identity theft, people use other people's identities to get medical procedures done, don't pay the bill. Synthetic identity theft, this one actually, it's a new term, and what that really means is that it's an identity. It's not, this particular crime is not meant just to steal money or to open a line of credit. This is a whole brand new identity that is being put together using fake name, an actual social security number, usually that of a child, a real address from another person. So taking elements from different people, using some real, some fake information, and combining it together to create this synthetic identity, this new fake individual. Child identity theft. A lot of people don't realize how often that happens, and that's actually a problem, and we will spend some time talking about it in the future in one of the slides. Tax identity theft, essentially someone filing fraudulent tax returns in your name with your social security number and collecting any type of return or anything that you might have. Criminal identity theft happens when someone uses your name, your driver license number, or anything that would identify as you when they get pulled over, or when they, for example, they get arrested, and then they are being booked as you. They're being booked under false pretenses, especially if they have a fake driver license or identification that has your name, your address. And it will be hard to then disprove that whenever you get, for example, pulled over for a, broken tail light, and then you learn that you have a arrest warrant for you because someone else used your identity, and that has happened in the past. And then, of course, something we'll talk about today is business identity theft. It not only happens to individuals, it happens to businesses as well. ID theft statistics. I know there's a lot on this slide, and I will go through it quickly, but I really want to give you guys an idea of how big identity theft is and why it's important to talk about it, because identity theft occurs every 2 seconds, right? So 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, identity stolen. We've been here for a few minutes. Imagine how many identities have already been stolen, sold on a dark web, resold, reused. So it's astronomical how bad this problem is. Approximately 15 million Americans are victims of identity theft every year. So that should tell you to the scale of how many people are affected. And if that is not bad enough on its own, 3 out of 10 victims will be repeat victims of identity theft. So after sorting it all out, doing everything they need to do, thinking their lives are back on track, back to normal, boom, they become victims again, because once and I can't not stress this enough, once your identity has been stolen, chances are it has been sold on the dark web. And once it hits that area of the internet, which is not monitored by authorities, essentially they try to, they monitor things like human trafficking and terrorism and other stuff like that. But once your identity hits the dark web, essentially there's no way of getting it off of there, and it's going to keep getting resold and resold to other perpetrators. Identity theft reports have increased every single year since 2017. So that should give you an idea that it's a problem that is not going away. Over 1.2 million children in the US were victims of identity theft in just 2021 alone. And we'll talk about later, especially for those who have children, you need to know how this happens and what you need to do in order for it not to happen, or what steps to take when it does happen. So losses are about 52 billion, but on average, people lost, let me see, I'm sorry, I have a little thing here. $1,500 on average, identity theft victim loses. And then approximately, due to research, 23% of victims do not get reimbursed for whatever reason, whether they caught it too late. It's, there are time frames the banks have in place that you can report an unauthorized transaction. Credit cards have a little bit more time that they give you, but still 23% is a large number of victims who did not get their money back. Leading type of identity theft in 2021, I think you all can kind of guess what that was, and it was government documents or benefits. That's when scammers were really trying to steal people's identities to commit unemployment fraud and to receive people's stimulus checks. So that is, that makes sense why that was the number one. Credit card fraud comes in a second place, but traditionally is the most common at that kind of ID theft before pandemic got here. 75% of identity theft involves computers. So 75% of all, identity theft happens when a computer is involved. That is why it is so important that we know what we're doing online. We are practicing, cyber safety. We have measures in place that protect us from hackers and viruses. And we went over all of this, our previous webinar, which was cybersecurity. So if you're interested, you can always go back and watch the recording. There's tons of information that is extremely helpful for you to make sure you're safe online. Stolen credit card is sold for about $5 on the dark net, and that's just the 16 digits. But if someone gets a hold of the entire card, code, expiration date, it can actually go from anywhere from $1 to $45 per card, depending what kind of card, what's the limit, that Black American Express is probably going to go, for $45 a pop. People in their 30s are most likely to be victim. Awkward, but yeah, it just seems that that's something that is happening to this particular age bracket. And I think the next point tells us why. Social media users are a high-risk group, and I feel like a lot of 30-somethings are on social media. They're constantly bombarded with ads, surveys, and they don't always take the time to take a look at it. What they're clicking on is a reputable company, good links, secure, so on and so forth. So these are the stats. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next slide and look past the statistics in terms of how much money was lost, how many victims. Let's take a look at damage and what is the aftermath of identity theft. And other than, having money stolen, on average, it took a victim about 6 months or 600 hours of work to fix identity theft issue. And if you remember, 3 out of 10 are going to be a repeat victim, and it's going to happen to them again. So they're going to have to spend all that time trying to resolve that issue. 40% of victims couldn't pay their regular monthly bills and expenses after they became a victim of identity theft. 83% of victims report in this survey being unable to rent an apartment, buy a house, finance a car because the damage that has been done to their credit report. Criminal records. So essentially, if we talked about this, someone steals your identity, commits a crime, and then the police, and they get arrested, and you then have to prove that you're not the person who has committed all those crimes. With people working online these days, it's a lot easier to get someone's social security number, submit an application, and work as you, and not pay income taxes. This one was really interesting that I really wanted to touch on is the emotional distress and mental health of these identity theft victims. Over 77% of them report an increased stress level, and 54% experienced fatigue and decrease in energy. 60% reported anxiety. And unfortunately, 8% of victims reported feeling suicidal. I mean, it is so tragic, but this should give you an idea of just how stressful being a victim of identity theft is. It's not just, someone hacked my account, someone got my social security number, I'm gonna make a report and it's gonna go away. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and it takes a huge toll on people physically, emotionally. For example, 29% of victims develop actual physical symptoms such as aches and pains, heart palpitations, sweating, and stomach issues, and 41% experience sleep disturbance. So this is taking a toll on every aspect of people's lives, including their relationships, which 17% of people reported having either ended or had a negative effect from being a victim of identity theft. So let's just keep all of this in mind, all of this aftermath, all of this damage. When we think about protecting our identity, our social security number, even as simple things like our address and date of birth, all of this, all of these elements are small little components of your large profile of your ID, which then, these perpetrators get their hands on and commit all of these crimes. So every little piece of information that you can protect, you should. And you should take a lot of care with your information. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next slide and talk about a little bit about child identity theft. As I mentioned before, a lot of people don't even realize that it's a problem, but we've seen that just in 2021, over 1 million identities of kids have been stolen. So why, right? Why? Because first of all, it's their identities are clean. There's a blank slate, essentially. They have no lines of credit, nothing. There's no derogatory statements, remarks. It's perfect to start building that report, right? That credit line. And children don't have credit reports. So parents don't typically think to check the children's credit reports because they don't think there's anything on it. So right now, we highly recommend that you do check to see if anyone has stolen your child's identity and detect it right away so it doesn't go on for years. Even though it's illegal for anyone under the age of 16 to apply for a loan, unfortunately, very little companies actually verify the age before issuing a credit card or a line of credit. So there are loopholes on how that happens. Another reason why is 2011, Social Security Administration switched the randomized Social Security numbers. This means the numbers no longer indicate the applicant's age in their Social Security number. So it's even harder to realize how old the person is by looking at their number. And a child's identity is easy to steal. So this is why it happens. And according to a study, over 70% of child identity theft victims know the perpetrators. So as unfortunate as tragic as it is, most likely it's someone in the family, someone related to the child who will see an opportunity to take a Social Security card, write down the number, take a picture of it, and then commit fraud and commit child identity theft. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next slide. How child ID theft happens. So we talked about why, and it was a little bit of how, but it happens within families. So it's there, it happens easily because it's available. So that's why it's important for all the parents to make sure all their kids' Social Security cards and numbers are stored away from anyone's view. So no one can just walk by a family computer desk or office desk and see their Social Security numbers lying there and just take a quick photo of it and run with it. Phishing scams or emails on social media. A lot of kids have social media accounts. Through there, they can actually be exposed to these phishing scams where they willingly provide scammers with information necessary or the information that the scammers need to steal their identities. Data breaches from companies that have stored your child's Social Security number. We talked last webinar just how astronomical data breaches are, how often it happens, and how many millions and billions of records are exposed during data breaches. So that is one of the ways your child's Social Security number could have been compromised. So if you know that one of the companies that has been breached had your children's Social Security numbers, you need to follow up. You need to make sure you check your children's report, make sure there's no lines of credit there. You can even freeze their report with the bureaus, with the reporting bureaus, if you choose to do so. Account hacking, again, kids can actually get their devices hacked. They can click on a link in a game that supposedly sends them cheat codes or discount codes, and all of these are designed to just have a child click on something that then gives the scammer access to the device. Devices are connected internally through networks. Now, the kid's device is compromised, your home computer is compromised. So now we're talking about scammers having all kinds of access to all kinds of information that they need. And then just, your regular physical theft of sensitive information. Maybe someone's, clinic got robbed, or someone just intentionally went in there and grabbed a bunch of, actual documents. I know a lot of hospitals, clinics went to digital storage of everyone's information. So that one's kind of not as prevalent, but it does happen. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next slide. And so what to do? If you suspect or you know for a fact that your child is a victim of identity theft, you definitely want to report and close all fraudulent accounts. You need to contact all the companies that lines of credits have been opened in your child's name. You need to make sure that you contact the fraud department, that they close it, put an alert, put a red flag, and send you a letter notifying that your child is not liable for those accounts, is not responsible for it. Then you need to contact all 3 credit bureaus and tell each credit bureau that someone, opened an account using a child's information, and ask them to remove any fraudulent accounts from the child's report. And again, step number 2, you can actually freeze your child's credit report. That way, no one can open any type of line of credit in their name using their social security number. It's easy to unfreeze. It used to be before there was a long process. Nowadays, it takes under an hour to unfreeze someone's credit report, either using a phone or online. And so having those measures like freezing the credit report is a very good idea that you can do to protect your kids and their future. Because once their identity is stolen, it's going to be really hard for them to, once they go out on their own, to rent an apartment, finance a car, like even get a job sometimes. So essentially, you need to make sure that you're protecting your kids right now when they cannot protect themselves, so that when they start their adulthood, they started not as a victim of identity theft, which will hinder them and hold them back so much more from what they could be potentially. And then, of course, report the child theft identity to the Federal Trade Commission. You can report it to your local police department. So the more reports you make, the better for you, and you'll have that substantiation when you are disputing any kind of future charges or accounts or anything like that. So these are the steps. And again, you'll have this, it'll be sent over to you, so you don't have to write it down. You can just always refer back to the slides. Let's take a look at the next slide and talk about top methods of identity theft. So we talked about, it happens, why it happens, but what is the method, right? How these scammers get their hands on everyone's information. And again, number one would be online data breaches. It is not anything that you can prevent. It's nothing you can control, because these are huge companies or smaller companies that are getting breached. It's on that company's, it's on them to make sure that they have security measures in place and their staff is trained not to be a victim of cybercrime. But when it comes to online data breaches, if you're exposed, your kids are exposed, it's out of your control. The best you can do is mitigate it, is again, go through the steps of freezing the report, monitoring your report, and so on and so forth. Second method is phishing emails. Again, these are scams designed to get information out of you voluntarily, essentially, because these emails are coming into your inbox looking legitimate. Some of them look very illegitimate. Right away, you can tell that's a phishing email. But essentially, the objective with these emails is to get you to click on a link, an attachment, or like a website, and either provide them with the information they're looking for, or to infect your device with the virus. And then once they take control of your computer, they have access to all the information. So that's another way how identity theft happens. Same with fraudulent websites and fake ads. This happens a lot on Facebook, or when you are just surfing the web, you see these ads and they're too good to be true, because like 80% off of a Louis Vuitton bag, or it's 90% off of a laptop or something like that. And you're like, yeah, that's such a great deal. Let me click on it and give them, my information. That and it's an old saying, but if it's too good to be true, it is literally too good to be true. Do not fall victim to these website and fake ads. Do not click on them. Do not go to these websites and then provide your payment information, your personal information, because you're just going to end up, worst case scenario, with a fake. You know what I mean? Actually, best case scenario, you're going to end up with a fake, like a fake knockoff bag, or but the worst case scenario, you're not going to have your product, and you just voluntarily gave the scammer all your information that they were looking for. One other way that information is being stolen, like a card information, is skimmers and shimmers, right? I don't know if you guys are familiar. I'm pretty sure you guys are, because there's tons of videos circulating on social media where customers come up to a gas station card reader and it seems off. So they pull off this cover, like a fake cover, a fake reader, and that's a skimmer. So scammers place them on actual terminals and actual card readers. Once you plug in your card, it just records all of that information and sends it to them. So now they have access to your credit card information. So and it happens at ATMs, gas stations, so on and so forth. So very good way to make sure that you're not, putting your card into a reader that has a skimmer on it is just gonna, shake it, look at it. If it looks bulky, if it looks weird, if it's just odd, don't use it. Like, for example, every time I'm like at a gas station, like if you see me at a gas station, I'm the one over there, like violently shaking the card reader, trying to see if it comes off. So if you see me do it, it's all good. I'm doing it for a reason. You should be doing it too. Really make sure you know where you're putting that card, because there's, again, tons of videos, even locally here in Central Valley, where consumers expose these fake card readers that steal your information. Shimmers, instead of putting a fake top on a card reader, shimmers are these tiny little, like smaller than a credit card devices that they put inside a card reader. So they're essentially not visible to the eye. Nothing is out of place. The reader in itself is real, but once you insert that card, that's when your information gets stolen. So that one is a lot harder to detect. So I really don't have a to-do for that specific method of stealing your card. Paying cash, I guess. That would be my recommendation. Scam phones and texts, a lot of ways, a lot of times people voluntarily give their personal information to scammers when they call them and pretend to be their bank. They pretend to be Social Security Administration, so all kinds of organizations that people fall for it and just willingly give the scammer their information, including name, social security number, and everything they need to steal their identity. Stolen or intercepted mail, a lot of times, recently my mailbox, where everyone's mail is, just got not hacked, you can't hack that, broken into, and they just took everyone's mail, like took it all. So a lot of times that happens. Or for example, if you live in a house that has that cute little mailbox and in your front yard, and you receive mail there, and when mail is there, cute little flag goes up like, oh hey, there's mail here. So that's all the scammer needs. Just drive up, open it. If there's no lock, get it, boom, and done. So that's how it happens. So you might want to stop doing that. You might want to have your mail either dropped into like a slot in your door, or have a lock on it, but I don't know how mailmen would get to there. So that definitely stolen mail is one of the ways. And then dumpster diving. And it's exactly what it sounds like. There are individuals, and they are very low on the identity theft totem pole, because their job is to go through your trash when you take your bins out, or even when they're in your driveway and it's at night so no one can see. They're literally going through your trash to see if you have thrown away any documents or mailers with any type of information that they can then sell to someone higher up on the totem pole, who will then start, once they have your name, they have your address, maybe a little bit of other information, where you bank, what kind of credit cards you have, what kind of loan you have for your car. Then they start searching the web and developing a much broader profile on you. So how to prevent that? Shred your stuff. Do not just throw away your documents or your mailers into your trash, so that someone then can go through it, retrieve it, and start a profile on you. Shred it, it's so easy. Go to any, like a Costco, get yourself a cross shredder. It's not expensive. It's definitely an investment that you need to make, and protect yourself. Don't burn your mailers. We live in California. There's a lot of fires as it. So don't go, to your backyard and start burning your mail. Just shred it. Okay, so that's my little, public service announcement there. Let's go ahead and take a look at our next slide, and how you talk about the ways you can tell, right? Ways you can tell that you are a victim of identity theft. Look for unauthorized transactions on your statement. So you constantly review. I review my bank statement on like a daily basis. I have my routine. In the morning, at some point, I'll open up my app and I will go through my bank statement to see, what's there. Pay attention to small little amounts that, under $1 and $1.50, which it's easy to just kind of brush off and not pay attention to, but what those are, that they are probes. They are probes into your account to see if it's an actual account and if it's active. Once that little transaction goes through and you didn't report it, guess what's going to happen next? They will then hit you for as much as they can because they know it's an active account and it's an actual account. So anytime you see charges out of place, you need to immediately contact your bank and let them know that it is not a charge that you authorize. Sometimes like little fees or something, you know, when you use apps, things get tagged along a little bit later on. And even if that's the case, like they can tell you, hey, this was, you know, attached to another payment, but it was at a tag on fee or something. And that's fine. At least you're safe. You know what I mean? At least it wasn't a probe into your account to see if it was an actual account. Missing bills or mail. So if you start missing bills and mail, don't be happy that your bills are not coming in. You're still going to have to pay them. I remember being 18 and I had a credit card bill that was just not getting to me. And in my 18-year-old mind, I was so happy thinking like, well, if it's not here, I don't have to pay it. Okay. Reality check, you do. So don't, when your bills are started missing, that means someone's intercepting them. You're not, you know, being forgiven your loans. Someone's getting their hands on your bills and on your mail. So you might want to check into that. And yes, it's not fun to call your credit card company and tell them to send them your bill. But that's what you're going to have to do if it's not getting to your mailbox or to your door. If you all of a sudden have been rejected for a credit card or a loan, and you are typically a responsible user, financial user, you are not maxing out your cards, something's off. So you might want to check your credit report and see if there are any unauthorized accounts and lines of credit open that you did not do. Your tax return is denied. That means someone filed using your social security number. Errors on your credit report. So again, that error just means that someone opened something in your name that you did not know. So look for those all the time. Check. Nowadays, almost every bank, at least that I have, and a credit card company, they offer you a way to check your credit report and look at all your accounts. So you opt in for those services because it's such a great way to stay on top of all of your, on top of your credit report and all the accounts you have, and to keep an eye on any issues that you might have. If you have an authentication alert, for example, coming to your phone for something and you're not opening anything up, you're not signing up for anything, that means someone's trying to do that in your name. Obviously, if you were told your name was part or account was part of a data breach, now you know that your identity can be potentially stolen because it's now compromised. When all of a sudden a new credit card arrives, not an offer, not a pre-approved offer, but an actual credit card arrives and you didn't sign up for it, that means someone else did. Look into that. Collection calls, trying to collect on debts you never occurred on your own. You didn't do it, you didn't open it, you didn't use up that credit line, someone else did. And of course, medical bills for procedures you did not do. Again, you now know that you are a victim of medical identity theft. So keep these in mind. And let's take a look at the next slide to what to do, right? So now we went over how to detect if you're an identity theft victim. What are you going to do now that you know? You're going to contact every company and every bank that the fraud has occurred. Do it, make a list, get the numbers and call them yourselves, get the fraud department and talk to them, fix the issue, close those accounts, reverse any transactions. Essentially, this is the 600 hours of work that we talked about in the beginning. This is where it's all coming in. This is what amounts to it. You're going to contact the credit reporting agencies one by one, and you're going to talk to them. You're going to tell them you've been a victim of identity theft. You're going to tell them which accounts are not yours, which you didn't authorize. They're going to put alerts on your reports. And again, you can freeze your report as well with each credit bureau. Ask for copies of your credit report or check annualcreditreport.com. So you always, again, this is just keeping an eye on your own credit report. Obtain documents related to fraudulent transactions or accounts opened. So you want to make sure you have all the documentation about the identity theft, what they've opened, when, what kind of information they provided, just to get as much information as you need. Any debt collection agencies that are telling you that you owe them money because someone opened a client in your name, you need to get their information as well. You definitely need to report it to the FTC. You need to reach out to your local law enforcement and file a report. It used to be that it was mandatory that you file a police report to then report to the FTC. Some banks want to see that police report or credit card companies before they reimburse the charges. So I think that's probably should be number one step that you do is you reach out to your local law enforcement and file a report with them. And contact your IRS if this has anything to do with your taxes and filings. Obviously alert your health insurance companies and medical care providers just in case someone will try to get something else, prescriptions, procedures, surgeries, or whatever else in your name. There needs to be an alert that they will deny that type of service. And obviously, if your driver license has been stolen, someone's using your driver license, you need to reach out to the DMV, let them know so they can put an alert on your driver license. Next up, these are just reporting areas where you would go if you needed to report, right? So again, you'll have this, you can take a screenshot, you can take a picture, or you can just refer back to this slide. These are the 3 credit reporting bureaus, and these are the numbers that you would utilize to call them and report being a victim of identity theft. Next. How to prevent yourself from all of that we just talked about, all of that headache, all that damage, all that time, all that money spent. How do we prevent that from happening? And we talked about some of the areas that are out of our control, like data breaches, but there's a lot of areas that are in our control. And that would be, again, talking about your social security number. Do not carry that card with you. It seems very common sense, and it feels like such a straightforward concept that you do not carry your social security card with you in case you drop your wallet somewhere or you open your wallet and it's somewhere visible. And but I do these presentations, I used to do them in high schools, with period after period with 50 kids, 60 kids, and I would just say, raise your hand if you have your your social security card with you. Mind you, these are still minors. They would raise their hands and be like, yeah, I carry mine with me in my wallet. Why would you do that? I used to throw stuff at them and nothing hard, just like a piece of candy or a stress ball. But I wanted to make a point that you do not do that. And they had to promise me that if I came back next year to talk to them, they would not have that social security card with them in their wallet. So let's just make that our best practice. Secure it, put it in a little safe, have a file that is somewhere secure in your home that no one has access to but you or people authorized. Don't share your personal information just because someone asked you for it, right? Like your date of birth, bank account numbers. So, and this goes back to the, phishing calls or phishing emails, just because someone asked you for something and they're pretending to be someone like a police department, or your bank or something else, do not willingly provide them with this information. If you have a concern that you think you need to talk to your bank about your account, hang up that phone call if they called you pretending to be that, and call your bank yourself and ask them if there's an issue with your account. So don't willingly provide it. I don't even provide my social security number like at a medical office when their applications or their little questionnaires have it, because there's just no need. I have health insurance and all the information is there. So I don't put my social security number on that application. I don't know who's going to handle it. I don't know how they're going to handle it. And I don't want my social security number just to be floating around where I have no control of how it's being handled. I only give it in a situation where they're literally telling me you have to, or we cannot proceed with whatever that process or situation is. And that is very, very rare. So safeguard that card like it's your life, and it's literally your life here in the country we live in. Your entire life revolves around that number. Collect your mail every day. Don't let it just hang out there and pile up. And then if you're away, put your mail on hold. Definitely pay attention to the billing cycles. Again, it's not a good thing that your bills are missing. You still have to pay them, but if they're missing, someone else got their hands on it. Review your credit card and bank account statements not on a daily, because I know it's a lot of hassle, but regularly. Look for those weird transactions that you didn't authorize. Shred all your stuff, even your little mailers, pre-approve this, pre-approve that. I don't even throw away any type of coupon that has my name on it. I shred it. Boom. It's really easy. It's right there by my office desk. I shred everything. Store personal information in a safe place, and then definitely be vigilant online and have cybersecurity measures in place. Because again, what was it, 70 or 80% of all identity theft happened, it was due to something to do with a computer or a network. So you really want to be sure you're safe online. Let's take a look at the next slide. And now we're going into business identity theft. We talked about individual identity theft. We talked about how it happens to kids, but not a lot of people realize that it actually happens to businesses. And we're not talking about business owners as individuals. We're talking about business as an entity, right? So business identity theft happens when criminals hijack business name for financial gain, and they try to take out loans, obtain credit cards, or defraud customers and vendors by pretending to be that business. Common way, I guess, of doing it is material misrepresentation, is when the scammers mimic a certain company and their name and make a slight little change in it and hopes that no one will be able to tell the difference. The customers won't be able to tell the difference. Even finance department and company itself won't be able to tell the difference when they're, getting some kind of approval for loans or something like that. Meanwhile, it's the scammer that is operating in that area trying to get these loans. So that's what happens with material misrepresentation. Let's take a look at the next slide, and we'll go over how hijacking of a business through fraudulent filing with the Secretary of State happens. And this is essentially when a scammer doesn't just want to mimic your company, they want to take over your company in the sense that they take on the identity of your business and they make changes within Secretary of State website. They update the address, they update managing members. And unfortunately, there is no legal authority that Secretary of State has to go deep to verify these changes or verify all of this. So those changes are made, and then a matter of short period of time, all of a sudden, thieves have official government documents stating that he or she owns your business, which you are the actual owner of. And now, everything is associated with the address that they've updated, and now they can do whatever it is that they want to do. So what can they do once they have hijacked and taken control of your company? They can now exploit the company's assets and credit for immediate cash. So what they do is, a lot of times these criminals, they start selling off companies' assets, equipment, and they are selling it off without obviously the company knowing. They're getting deposits, they're getting payments for equipment they don't own, equipment that is not theirs, or they max out all the credit cards and loans, and they buy expensive luxury stuff like cars, computers, electronics, and they sell it for a quick turnaround cash, essentially. They can open new bank accounts in the company's name, and what they do is they use those banks for their illegal activity, to launder money, and to then, further perpetrate this whole identity theft crime. And they can actually defraud your customers. Now that they're acting as you, they have access to your customers' information. They can ask your customers for payments. They can get orders, actually get money or for orders and never send that out, deposits, all of it. So they're acting as you, but they are acting in malice, and they're not doing, what the company would be doing if they were dealing with their customers. So these are the ways that perpetrators can destroy a company when they hijack the company's name. Let's take a look at what on the next slide, what to do. You definitely want to report it to your local police department, report it to the FTC, report it to the FBI through their ic3.gov website. And extremely important to reverse this is to contact Secretary of State to reinstate yourself as the official owner, and to flag your company as a victim of identity theft, which will then prevent anyone from so easily changing anything on that site and getting their hands on all these official documents so they can continue the crime. So these are the things you would do if someone hijacked your company. Let's take a look at other ways. So thieves can sometimes impersonate a business with a fake website or social media platform. So they just mimic the website, make it look identical to what yours look like. Same thing with social media platforms, especially easy to do if the company doesn't have a website and doesn't have social media presence. Then creating one and acting as that company is really easy. So now they are tricking customers into thinking they're placing orders with this company. Customers provide money. The product or service will never arrive to the customer. So they're defrauding people. And they can also take out, and this one is actually kind of scary when I did my research, because apparently some of the processes or some of the policies that lenders have is just verification of your website to give you a line of credit. So if these fraudsters apply for a loan in your company's name and all they need is a website, they obtain these lines of credits, max it out and never pay, but they opened it in your name. So that's going to be on you to fix that. Let's take a look at the next slide and what to do when that happens, right? If someone is impersonating you on the website or social media platforms, you need to contact the web hosting service and get them to take that fraudulent website down and then report each social media account. As they give you reasons why you want to report it, and there's actually an option that says they're not who they are, they're pretending to be me. And so you can, and social media platforms then block these accounts and restrict them. So these are the steps you would take to mitigate the problem of someone impersonating you online. Next slide, last one is when thieves are using federal employer identification number, and essentially they're just using it to file returns in your company's name and collect. So file tax returns and collect any money that was due to you. And they use the employer identification number to secure loans and lines of credit as well. So every time you can see in all of these methods that they utilize, each method gives them access to lines of credit in your company's name that they can then utilize, max out, and be in the wind. So definitely keep these items safe, like your numbers. I know some of the companies have to have a lot of information publicly available. So just make sure that you safeguard what you need to safeguard. Let's take a look at the next slide and we'll talk about how to prevent business ID theft. So we talked about how you can prevent your own personal identity theft. And let's talk about business regularly. And it's kind of a crossover. There's a lot of overlap in both areas. Regularly check your company's credit report for unusual activity, just like for your own self. You want to look at that report and cross-reference each account, each line of credit to make sure that those are the ones that you have opened and authorized. Definitely limit the amount of information that's just floating around on the internet, where you're putting your information. Just limit all of that, limit access to sensitive information internally. Again, because sometimes there are malicious internal actors who aid in these business identity theft because they have too much access to sensitive information that they shouldn't have. Train your staff in cybersecurity. So this goes to training them in how to spot a phishing email, what to click on, what to download, what to do in the case of a compromised device, and all of that. Closely monitor the correspondence you receive, and that's important because if someone has tried to open something in your name, you're going to receive some type of correspondence that will speak to that. So don't brush it off. Don't think it's a coincidence or a mistake or whatever it is. Pay attention to that. Definitely watch documents you throw away. So don't throw them away, actually shred them, and then protect sensitive business information that is required to steal your business identity. Let's take a look at the next slide. And I think that one is just going to be resources and reporting. Again, just report to, in any instance of personal or business ID theft, report to the local law enforcement, to the FBI, Federal Trade Commission. And if you're a part of a scam, or not part of a scam, you're not the perpetrator, but if you're a victim of a scam, definitely report to Better Business Bureau Scam Tracker. And I actually think at this point, this is the end. Yeah, that was the end of we'll talk more in the Q&A section. So if you guys have any questions or think of something, drop them in the chat and we'll discuss a little bit after we talk about SCORE.
Thank you so much, Lilia. I think I speak for all when I say we're terrified, and you were very successful, but also you leave us with hope. There are things we can do. I want you to know that there are a number of SCORE resources for starting your business, and including getting more information on identity theft and how to prevent it. So we have you will receive this report and you'll be able to check these links. I think it's time for our poll. And so we want to see how we did. And then we have a number of questions that are compiling. And our exit poll, as a business owner, did you find today's webinar helpful? That would include terrifying, by the way, because that is a shock to wake up.
Mission accomplished. Yes.
Mission accomplished. Yes. So please answer that question. Would you like a mentor that specializes in identity theft? So we would match you up with the right person. By the way, all of our mentors can access the experts. So a mentor of any sort can get you that help. And then would you recommend a friend to SCORE, or even SCORE to a friend? So we would love for you to answer those questions. And we'll give you a few moments to do it. They're pretty straightforward. I'd say about another 10 seconds. And then we'll share the results with you. Here come the results. 89% of you found it very helpful, or found it helpful. So that's great. Would you like a mentor that specializes? Some of you said no. 22% of you said yes, though. And we'd be happy to work with you on that. And would you recommend SCORE to a friend? We thank you for those who would. 89% of you, and we always appreciate that. And we are ready now for our questions. I would tell you one thing that I took away, Lilia, and is that, and also Devery, you can't just say in this day and age, I'm not going to be on the internet in any way. If you don't take your place and establish your parking spot, somebody else will, and you've got to monitor it. And even just like on these Facebook clones, I do a search on Facebook for my name, and and there are 1,000 people, Tom Sims, but if any of them have my picture, I'm just gonna do the very simple thing and report it, and they'll take it down. So the first question that comes up is, could you say more about intercepted mail, how this happens, and measures that can be put in place to prevent it? Somehow someone took a check I put in a mailbox to pay a vendor, rewrote the amount of who the check was written to for many thousands above what I paid out. Luckily, the bank saw the signature didn't match mine. What can we do to prevent it? By the way, back in the old days, before a lot of you were born, we had we would always use the whole line for the written amount. We would make sure there was nothing left. But that's old school. What do you recommend?
Again, recommendation would be taking your mail out of the mailbox daily. Do not let it pile up there so that someone can drive up at night and break that lock, the master lock, and just get all that mail out. That's number one, because that's what happened in my area where I live. You want to notify your post office. Usually they're very good. There was already once I realized there was already a police cruiser there. They were already on it. You want to kind of take stock of what you were receiving at that time, because unfortunately for me, and I was terrified at that time, I just ordered a replacement card for my daughter's social security number, and they gave me 2 weeks window, and the mailbox got broken into within those 2 weeks. So I was not sure. Luckily, that was not one part of what they took, but you need to kind of know what you're expecting to receive. And if you're missing that, or someone broke in and retrieved that, you need to let, obviously contact the companies, tell them that, you either need a new statement, let your bank know if your checks were there or your checkbook was there. So essentially you're going to have to then contact a lot of places and keep an eye on your credit report and your bank statement to see if there's anything unusual. But again, don't use that little mailbox in front of your lawn with the little red flag that tells the scammers, I'm here, take me. And then just in general, when you drop your mail in for outgoing, a lot of us do it, make sure that it actually hits the bottom of that box and it's not stuck to the side, because scammers actually put like a double-sided tape inside of the outgoing mailbox. So when you drop it, your envelopes get stuck to the side and then they retrieve it very easily. So a few things that you want to do to make sure that no one gets their hands on your mail. Excellent
answer. I'm going to go back and forth from Q&A and chat. We've got in both. For either of you, is Apple Pay or Google Pay or one of those other, or PayPal Pay, I would say would be another one. Are any of those safer than just using a debit or credit card?
Not necessarily safer, but they are the maximally safe methods of payment. Just using a debit card number isn't enough isn't giving enough information itself to be exploited, but not giving up that number at all is certainly preferable, right?
Correct, because they're compiling it, right? So they get a number here, something else here, and they're putting it together. So the least amount of information you can put out there, the better. So even if you made a purchase from like a questionable website, if you used it through one of those options that you mentioned, Tom, at least you're not exposing your payment method. It's just loss of money, which then there are policies in place that you will get most likely reimbursed, but you're not exposing that actual payment information.
Right. And you can monitor it all in one place that way. I think that's the part I like. So we had another one that came up for, oh yes, for Devery. Devery, thoughts on VPN?
So VPN stands for Virtual Private Network, as Lillian knows. What it does is it anonymizes the source of your internet traffic. Internet traffic by nature is encrypted. As soon as it goes into your computer from your keyboard and leaves on its way to wherever it's destined, it's encrypted. But a lot of the information used in that traffic has to do with where information is coming from, where information is going to, and certain pieces can be intercepted and decoded with relative ease. So VPNs prevent that or make it much harder. They do sort of the shotgun approach, where the traffic appears to be in a lot of places at once. It's harder, it makes it harder for malicious agents to intercept that traffic.
Thank you. That's a great answer. And we could spend more time on it, but I have a lot of questions and run out of time. So what are the different things that someone can do with checking account number, routing number? I need to share these on my landlord's tenant application, and wondered how they could catch up with me. So sometimes you have to use routing numbers with certain services directly from a checking account. Any precautions we can take with those?
It's unfortunate. ACH is so entrenched in the economic infrastructure that
And it's hard to cancel, isn't it?
it's an act of Congress.
Yeah, even shutting down your checking account will not cancel an ACH sometimes.
Which is incredible.
You're still liable for it. We don't have a good answer. Sorry on that one, but see if they'll take another form of payment. I'm hoping that more companies will and vendors will move past that.
It's true.
And ask them for a cancellation procedure, I think would be, okay, even if we do all the steps after becoming a victim of identity theft, what are the lasting effects we can expect to need to manage for the rest of our lives, even if we replace all of our key documents? This was well written, but I'm summarizing the words. What still happens?
Okay, so what happens is that your identity information is still out there. Again, 3 out of 10 are repeat victims. So the best option that you can do after you've closed the fraudulent accounts, you were reimbursed, you need to put a freeze on your credit reports with each reporting bureau, right? With all 3 of them. It is very easy to unfreeze, and there's 2 ways of unfreezing it. You can do temporary, just so the lender can check your credit report. If you're applying for a loan, financing a car, it's temporary. They check it, the freeze is back on. Or you can just unfreeze it for how long you want it to be. I do believe there's a fee associated with that, but there's a lot of loopholes. If you are part of a data breach, companies offer you free freezing of your credit reports, but that is literally the way to go if you want to make sure that no one opens any accounts in your name, is to put a freeze on all of your credit reports.
And if you're in business, you need to contact maybe a Better Business Bureau, maybe Dun & Bradstreet. Is there a reporting protocol for those? Same
reporting bureaus as well. And
okay.
Put an alert and all of that. Yeah, same protocol.
Paying for services, monitoring services. I was going to ask that myself. Someone has used Google Alerts. Someone mentioned LifeLock. There's several other services. Some of them offer a service that they will help you repair the breach. They'll do the legwork for you. What are your thoughts on those services?
Even though BBB cannot endorse a specific company or a service, anything like that, if this is a measure that you can put in place that, number one, can alert you ahead of time that something is up, someone tried to do this. They're monitoring all of your identity. So these companies, give you heads up. They also put insurances in place, not to say that it's guaranteed 100% that you will be absolutely safe. It's just another thing that you can do to protect yourself. And again, there's these little things that they provide you with, these little benefits, such as the alert, such as the protection or insurance, that it can help you overall to either not be a victim, or they help you with the steps to fix the issue in a case that you do become a victim of identity theft. So the more you can do, the better for you. That's all I can say.
Good. Did you want to add anything to that, Devery? Maybe some of your clients use those kinds of services. You're on mute.
Forgive me, sorry. Yeah, absolutely. We have a monitoring agent in our cybersecurity stack, or a monitoring platform within our cybersecurity stack. It's essential. A lot of credit cards offer that service. A lot of your information is already out there. And it's just something that you should be aware of. So if you're not signed up on a monitoring service now, it's well worth it.
All right, very good. Is there any advantage for us to download a Tor or a dark web search for our information being found online? And what can we do if we actually find our medical information, social security number, or other details on the dark web? And go ahead and define Tor for everybody, because not everybody knows that protocol.
Yeah, so Tor, and there are other buzzwords that you might have heard on the internet or in geeky circles, but Tor is a type of browser that is software defined so that you can only access parts of the internet with certain encryption keys installed in your browser. So hence the dark web. You can't access those parts of the internet unless you've been given the key. Public web, such as Google, anybody can access Google. Google doesn't require any sort of authentication from the browser. When you have to put in a password to a website, you're authenticating with that website. You're proving who you are. This is just software defined in that the password comes from the browser itself. It's not something you input. But if you find your social security number online and it's being used maliciously, you should immediately apply for a new one. That is one of the chief reasons you should get a new social security card. Lilia, did you have anything to add to that?
That in itself, I looked a little bit into it, and there's a lot of hesitancy there from the Social Security Administration on issuing a new one. They almost, from what I've seen, and this research is a little dated, they almost just do it for like people in WITSEC and like something that's very almost like you're in danger in some way other than identity theft. This could be dated information, but this definitely worth looking into if you're exposed, because if you think about it, if so many people and data breaches were exposed, I don't know if Social Security Administration would comply with, issuing all of those new numbers. And that's just, I'm thinking based on what I looked into, but definitely worth a try. If it's used maliciously over and over again, I think that could possibly be a way to do.
So let me drill down the question a little bit. For what I read initially, this user, this attendee is asking, should I install Tor and do my own dark web search? And part of me is saying, I'm not sure you want to go down that path. It's like the into the woods thing. So maybe that's a good case for, getting one of those monitoring services so you don't have to wander into the darkness.
Not to get too technical, but just to clarify, you can't access the dark web with just a Tor browser.
Right.
You need the way to authenticate with those servers hosting that part of the dark web so that you can get to that part of the dark web. They allow you to. So unless you're making deals with, criminal organizations on the internet, sort of like a double agent thing, which would be a cool movie plot, you won't have any luck undoing anything with just a Tor browser.
But the security services can probably can probably detect some of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the answer is don't go down that path. I think that's the answer. I'm wondering if my identity has been stolen. I added myself to the do not mail list about a decade ago. It was, so I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at me. I thought that would work too. It was successful in not receiving any solicitation mail for all those years, but during COVID, I started receiving mail in what looks like my full name. The last two letters of my last name were changed by someone, and for a year now, I've been receiving solicitations from different big and small companies I have no affiliation with or have not filled out forms with. Is this a sign that my identity was stolen? As someone who has no business credit, if nothing, shows on my Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, how can I ensure that my identity has not been stolen? Well-written question. Did you get it?
Yes, there is no way to 100% know whether your identity has been stolen or not, unless you see unauthorized accounts on your credit report. And I do believe I understood that the question said they checked all of the reports and there was nothing. So at this point, you're safe. But has someone been doing something in your name or put your name in some kind of list or something? It's hard to tell. The best thing you can do is monitor bank statements, credit card statements, credit report. Have some kind of monitoring system that alerts you. When it comes to mailing, and I know they're annoying receiving the mailers and everything, try to get on that list again so that you don't receive all of this, the mailers, and so you don't have to shred everything. But unfortunately, again, there is no way to know if your identity has been compromised unless you have proof of someone using it maliciously.
Right. And I believe in the last webinar, you noted that once data is stolen in a massive breach, they sit on it for, I think you said 6 months or even longer.
Oh, well, usually the companies or the person won't know that they've been breached for a very, on average, I believe was 200 days or 207. And then from breach to containment, it was 290 days. So that all the time that scammers have access to all the information to do with it what they want. So they can even just continue getting new information. So it's not that they sit on it, it's just that they have a lot of time to access everything that they want.
Well, the good news is there are things you can do, and the bad news is you'll have to do them. I have a request here. Could you please enable chat for attendees if not in this call after the webinar? Feels more like a class when we can chat with the presenters. Yeah, well, that's a good suggestion. And I think that we're going to take that. We had so much stuff to get through, and we wanted to make, and we use this over and over again. So we will consider that and see what the technicalities of that really are for us. And hopefully we can do meet some of your needs on that. That's been notably referred to our admin, correct? Okay.
Yes, I will look into that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anything else? Wow, what a great webinar. What a wonderful presentation. What great questions and thorough answers we've had today. And I appreciate it so much coming from Central Valley SCORE, thanking Lilia and Devery. And Lily, I know how much work you did putting this together and how much research. It was a massive effort. And you'll get to use it over and over again. And this webinar will reach a lot of people. So we thank you. And I think that's all. Do either of you have any closing words?
Perhaps just if anyone has further questions, for either me or Devery. Our information will be emailed to attendees after this. So my email will be there. Feel free to send me any questions, information, follow up, and I'll do my best to get back to you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
yes.
And if our panelists and SCORE mentors would stay on the line, we'll have a brief meeting, and the rest of you can go get some lunch or breakfast.
Thank you all.